Um, so basically, the scene is, um, it's a humor scene, and therefore really hard to understand when you see it on paper. It's actually better to watch it acted out. So I've enclosed a clip on the classroom stream, and I might look at a couple of clips while we're going through this scene, or a couple of parts of the clip while we go through the scene. So, but anyway, let me just go through some of the vocabulary. Um, I'm going to just go through some of these words. So, dissemble is pretend. Strange, but that's what it means. Lean means thin. Jove is also Jupiter or God. Um, they really loved ancient mythology back then, so when they referred to God, they very often used the word um, Jove. Counterfeit is to lie or pretend. That okay. A curate is a priest. A grandam is a grandmother. Woodcock is a bird. So at one point in the scene, he says that Pythagoras would say that the soul of your grandmother could be found in a bird, and then that's basically talking about reincarnation. Ere is before, and knavery is foolishness. Okay, barricados is a barricade. Um, oops. Or a thick wall. Clear stores. I was looking this up. Um, had trouble finding it, but I think it means an upper window in a house, almost like a dormer, I think. If you don't know what a dormer is, ask your mom and dad or just look it up. But basically, a dormer is like a pointy window on the side of a roof of a house. All right, so let's just go through some of the phrases so we were not frightened by them when we see them. Um, so I'll call Sir Toby the whilst is whoops, oh dear, uh, is it just means meanwhile. I'll get Sir Toby. Whoops. Okay, and I am not tall enough to become the function well. What means is I am not big enough to play to be this or to do this job or to be this kind of person. So become just means it can be a lot of things, but in this case, it just means the whole phrase means I'm not tall enough or big enough to pretend to be a priest. To him in thine own voice means um, speak to him in your own voice. Because for most of the scene, Feste is pretending to be Sir Topas the priest. And then at some point, Toby says to him, I just use your own voice. Let's get this over with. We were well rid of this knavery. Um, I don't want to fool around anymore, is pretty much literally what Toby means because he knows that he's in trouble with Olivia. And Olivia's basically decided that she wants to get married. She's found a guy that she wants to get married. And this is kind of like, Toby knows that he's in trouble. And he also knows that there's kind of the end of his, time of having fun. I cannot pursue with any safety this sport to the upshot. I can't keep doing this without getting in trouble. So yeah, it's actually. I mean, I guess the main word in that sentence would be upshot. Upshot just means result, um, or without a bad result might be another. An upshot is a result. So he basically says, "I'm in danger now. If I keep fooling around like this, I'm going to get in trouble." He knows that the gig is up or the jig is up. All right, so let's go through some literary devices. The first set of devices are the allusions. If you don't remember, an allusion is really sort of a hint or a suggestion. Um, and very often allusions are made to things that are like widely known in the culture of the people that are, in the audience. So in this case, the Uh, the clown Feste says, "And I would I were the first that ever dissembled in such a gown." So what he means literally, I'll just put down the literal translation of this. But he means, I wish I were the first person that ever pretended while wearing a priest's outfit. So what does he mean by that? Given that he is wearing a priest's robe, what is he inferring about priests by this comment? What he means is um, priests do a lot of pretending. In other words, that he's saying that priests are corrupt, and this would be kind of an inside joke amongst Shakespeare's audience. Back then, priests had a lot of power, and they were everywhere. The church was a huge part of people's lives, and so this is kind of like Shakespeare's complaint about the corruption of the church and priests and everything. Okay, the next one. I am not lean enough to be thought a good student. So what he's saying, so in this case, lean means thin. And so what he's suggesting is that students are poor and thin. They're undernourished. I believe that's what that means. Maybe somebody can find some other definition. So he's saying, I'm not tall enough to be a priest, and I'm not thin enough to be a student. So the implication is that to be a scholar, you basically have to sacrifice your comfort. You don't get paid anything while you're studying your books, and you just, you're reading all the time. You don't have time to go out and eat, and your body is wasting away, but your mind and your soul are flourishing. Okay, the next set of literary devices is the malapropism. So a malapropism is a type of humor. We didn't go over this in class, but it's a funny misuse of a common expression. This play is full of malapropisms, and mostly it's because Toby is drunk all the time. So he misunderstands all kinds of common expressions. But in this case, the fool does it. He says "Buenos dias," and "Buenos dias," I think, is the correct Spanish expression. Just means basically good day. Yeah, I don't know if anybody in class can help me with that, but basically that's what that means. So the fool is smart enough to know the proper expression, but he's constantly messing up common expressions for humor. All right, speaking of humor, let's look at some of the humor in the fool's lines. This is really the hardest part of the play. Understanding 500-year-old humor is really, really hard because humor changes. It goes bad really quickly. Something that was funny like 5 years ago isn't funny anymore. So 500 years ago is really not going to be funny, but let's take a look. All right. So Malvolio says, Sotopes, good Sotopes, go to my lady. And then the clown says, out hyperbolical feed, how vexest thou this man? Talkest thou nothing but ladies? Okay. So first of all, he's pretending to be an exorcist. So he's calling the fiend or the demon out of the body of Malvolio. So that's the first thing about the context. The idea is that there's a demon inside Malvolio, and so the clown says, out demon. He's pulling him out. And then he's saying, how dare you torture this man? All you do is talk about ladies. So it's funny because, lady in this case is, it's an honorific for Livia. What I mean by that is that it's a term of respect for Olivia. Like, Olivia is my lady, right? And that's how Malvolio speaks about her. But it's also implied that a lady is an object of indecent, kind of lustful thoughts. So Malvolio says, "Go to my lady," and then the clown says, "Oh, that's all you think about, ladies." So it's funny. And this basically goes on. It reinforces this idea that the clown is pretending to be a priest that is a complete idiot and just cannot reason properly with Malvolio. So Malvolio needs to talk to someone serious, and instead the priest brings him this like lunatic. I mean, the Feste brings him a lunatic priest to talk to. So here's the priest saying, this house isn't dark, it's light. The house has bay windows, transparent as barricados, and clear stores toward the south-north that are as lustrous as ebony, and yet complains thou of obstruction. Okay, so this is, ridiculous talk, because, barricades are opaque, right? You can't see through them at all. And here he says that the windows are as transparent as barricades, which means you can't see through the windows at all. And clear stores are as lustrous as ebony. So what that means, he's basically saying the windows are as shiny as is, basically black wood. So it's ridiculous talk, and it's sort of the priest is basically more of an idiot even than the clown is. So he's just messing with him. The clown Feste is just messing with Malvolio. I am not mad, says Malvolio, Sir Topaz. I say to you, this house is dark. And then the clown says, madman, thou errest. I say, there is no darkness but ignorance. So, it's just more crazy talk. The priest, he's basically just, acting crazy. Malvolio is basically trying to say, I am, I'm stuck in a dark place, like literally a dark place. And the priest, is basically saying, a dark place is, depression or, like insanity. So nowadays it might make sense for you guys to think of that expression. Like if I say, oh, I'm in a really dark place, you would say, oh yeah, you must be sad. And then I could turn around and say, no, really, I'm stuck in a dark place. I'm in a room that is dark. And then you could carry on and say, yeah, Mr. Wade, yeah, I know that you're sad. That's too bad. And you could be like, and I could be trying to convince you that I'm actually stuck in a place without a light, and you could be constantly misinterpreting what I say to be, figurative darkness. And that's kind of funny. If so, you just imagine it that way. All right, the next one. This is a really hard one to break down for you, because it talks about Pythagoras, who is an ancient Greek philosopher, mathematician, who believed in reincarnation. So the idea is that okay, I'm going to try to break this down. So reincarnation was accepted by the ancient Greeks, but rejected by the Elizabethan English. So reincarnation, if you don't know, is this idea that when you die, your soul comes back and inhabits the body of another person or an animal or something like that. The ancient Greeks believed in this, but the Elizabethan English rejected this idea as being, stupid and blasphemous and all that. So in this case, the priest, the priest basically supports the idea of reincarnation, and therefore he's kind of an idiot, right? So Malvolio, the priest says, "Do you believe in the theory, of reincarnation?" And Malvolio says, "Oh, of course I don't. I'm completely sane, just like everyone else. I don't believe in that." And then the priest says, "Well, you should. It's a perfectly good idea." The priest is acting like an idiot, and this is funny. And it's implied that, Shakespeare's sort of suggesting that priests are actually idiots. This whole scene, in poking fun at priests was probably going to get a laugh from the audience, who might have sympathize a bit with Shakespeare because priests had a lot of power. All right, so let's go through some final questions for this scene. So, what part does Mariah ask Feste to play in the prank against Malvolio? So she basically asks him to play the role of the priest Sir Topas. It's not known whether he was a real guy or just some guy that Feste made up. Feste is a great actor, and he can do anything, right? He can act the part of anything. In this case, Sir Topas, the priest, is also an exorcist who, oops, who cures people of their demon possession. So if you don't know what that is, it's an old idea that the body is a kind of like a jug or a vessel, and your soul, your body can be taken over by a demon. And so they actually would employ priests to go around to people who were crazy and bring the demon out of them. So it's implied that Sir Topas is an exorcist as well as being like a priest. All right, question 2. How does Feste treat Malvolio as he pretends to be a priest? Honestly, he just sort of messes with him. He acts like an idiot on purpose. To basically not really drive him crazy, but to drive him, to make him upset. Everybody knows that Malvolio is not crazy, but they're just making Malvolio think that everyone thinks that he's crazy. Why is Sir Toby eager to stop pranking Malvolio halfway through the scene? What is he afraid of? He realizes that a few things. He realizes that Olivia is going to marry Cesario. He doesn't know that Cesario and Sebastian are two different people, but he realizes that Olivia is going to marry Sebastian, and therefore, his time as a parasite, is over. He realized, this whole time he has been trying to, get his niece to either marry Sir Andrew or just keep things the way that they're going so that he can continue, drinking and partying at Olivia's expense. But he realizes that Olivia is going to marry Sebastian. He also realizes that Olivia is very angry with him, that he's in trouble, and he knows this. And up until this point, Olivia really hasn't taken any action against him, but now she's taken action. She's found, Olivia has sort of found herself, found her voice, and doesn't isn't going to put up with nonsense anymore. The way she talks about Sir Toby in the previous scene is like a way that she hasn't really spoken about him before. Next question. What does Sir Feste promise to Malvolio before he leaves him alone? He promises to get him ink, paper, candles. So Malvolio is going to write a letter explaining his situation to Olivia and begging to be set free. And then, okay, so the next question is more of a open-ended kind of opinion question. Do you think that Malvolio deserves this treatment, or is the prank excessively abusive? I mean, it's up to you what you think. Malvolio, is sort of he's a target for hatred because he kind of abuses the servants. And it's implied that he really has kind of high pretensions. He's very pretentious. He thinks that he's better, he's above himself. He thinks that he's better than everyone else. He thinks that, and he is potentially a very dangerous person. If this was not a comedy, Malvolio might be a really dangerous villain, by the end of the play, he doesn't have any um, regret for the way he's treated people, even though he's been treated badly himself. He doesn't apologize, and he just, he sees himself as a victim. Um, he's sort of self-righteous, um, and he's kind of unrepentant, right? He doesn't get it, and that's a big problem with Shakespearean villains. They have all these kind of dangerous sociopathic tendencies. So it's even, if you think about it, is Malvolio a sociopath? He might be. On the other hand, but it's a really serious prank, um, to be treated that way. But you know, uh, because if you think about it, his Malvolio's reputation um, is ruined. It'll be hard for him to find another job, and he can't really, he can't stay in this household without becoming a different person. So if he stays himself, and it's implied that it's very hard for him to change, there's no way that anyone will be afraid of him anymore, and they'll just continue to abuse him. So Malvolio, it's up to you whether you think, like today, whoops, sorry, nowadays, it would be excessive. The way he was treated, and you could get in a lot of trouble for basically doing this kind of thing to somebody. But back then, in Shakespeare's time, all kinds of crazy stuff happened. It was a very violent society, and people, rough justice was pretty common. They didn't have, the kind of fair system that we have today. Okay, so that's it for going over the scene, and hopefully it makes a bit more sense to you guys. I'm going to upload this as soon as I can.